Okay. Hey, good morning, everybody, and thanks for taking some time out of your day to join us for this conversation. Um, today's virtual session is focusing on brand building and storytelling. This is part of BIPOCann's social equity mentorship program, which is in partnership with the Colorado Cannabis Business Office. Earlier in 2023, the Cannabis Business Office awarded grants for $25,000 and $50,000 to social equity individuals in the state. So some of the grant recipients are either operational, already in business, or in the process of going through, their application so that they can get their businesses propped up, ready to go. Now, over the past 5 weeks, um, about a dozen of the social equity grant winners have participated in this our second social equity mentorship program. For the first few weeks, the focus was on trying to understand each of the businesses' individual goals, some of their needs and challenges. Um, Part of our curriculum includes direct mentorship. So, based off of the goals and the interests of the participants, we did some matchmaking with a mentor for dedicated assistance. But we also have some structured curriculum. Now, for the first few weeks of that program, we were really focusing on the business foundations. So, trying to make sure that we can uh, help the mentees with things like accounting basics, operational basics, and then doing some business exercises. Like last week, we had a workshop where we focused on some business strategy exercises. We did SWOT analysis, lean canvas, and really that was just an opportunity for us to learn about some of the strengths and the opportunities, some of the things that I think this cohort can really take advantage of given their unique status as social equity license holders. um, Today we're transitioning into the second phase of our program, which what we're going to be doing is trying to talk about some considerations for brand building and how storytelling can help grow your business. In the weeks to come, we'll be working in one-on-one and in group settings with the program participants to help them really craft some stories, some messaging based off of those goals and the insights that we learned a few weeks ago. And that's all leading up to, we're going to end up having some like a media day and allow, basically create some opportunities for all the participants to attend a local conference and some networking events. So, um, with that, thanks for bearing with me on that long intro. But we've invited a few subject matter experts, in the brand marketing and PR space to help us just share some insights about um, how we can use brand building and storytelling to help you as like a new business owner. So without further ado, I'd like to make some introductions. We have Michelle Ringelberg uh, of Thrive Pop. We have Lori Shepard of 25 Seconds PR and Jarrell Wall of Gentleman Quins. Now, thank you all for joining today. Like, if you could just, each take a minute or two to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and maybe some of the ways that you can help businesses. I'd like to start by introducing Michelle.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michelle Ringelberg, CEO of Thrive Pop, and I've been doing marketing since the late 90s. So I've seen a lot of things change and evolve and turn digital. So I have lots of stories to tell about that. But we really focus on helping companies develop a marketing strategy and plan and sticking to it. And obviously, without plans, sometimes you need to change direction and focus. But really, it all starts with the goals. And as he was mentioning earlier, like getting those foundations done first and like setting up the goals are really important. So it kind of ties good with that marketing strategy. So we do everything from graphic design, SEO, pay-per-click, search engine optimization, website development, social media management. But really, like, our focus is really making sure that we have that marketing strategy in place first, and then understanding like what the struggles are of your end client, so that we can position that and like change that story, so that when you're talking to them that they can relate, and you can convert them. So basically we work on retainer, and so clients come to us and they will have a certain budget in mind, and so based on that budget we will determine what different tactics that we will implement for you based on the strategy. So we have a team of, we work in pods. So like every strategist has a graphic designer, social media, web developer, copywriter, so that you're always working with that same team and they get to know you and your goals for your company and goals for the marketing campaigns, so that we're all in alignment and on the same page. So that's how we help companies.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Lori, could you introduce yourself as well?
Yes. Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Lori Shepard. I am the founder of 25 Seconds PR. I am based in the San Francisco Bay Area and founded the business in 2014 after having worked in a corporate environment in marketing for gosh, I don't know, 12, 15 years. Worked in Silicon Valley, working for technology companies, and that's really where I got involved with PR. Although my original background is journalism, so I was actually a journalist. I worked in the print journalism space. So it's a perfect marriage. I think about the marketing work that I did for Hewlett Packard, and then I didn't mention that before, but I was working for Hewlett Packard, and I worked for another company called Intuitive Surgical, and I did do some public relations for them. But when I think about the work that I do for 25 Seconds, it's really a perfect marriage between that corporate environment and the marketing and the journalism experience, excuse me. So what we do at 25 Seconds is come up with get a good sense for where clients are in terms of what they're trying to achieve and getting their stories out there. And public relations really is all about storytelling in many ways. It's really about ways that you can get the media to talk about your company, whether it be the company itself, whether it be individuals at the company, whether it be widgets and products and services. It really doesn't matter. It's really about taking all of those special things that make your company unique, and then working with the media in a way that they can begin to tell the story. And there's kind of unique ways that we do that. And then the marketing part of it also includes outreach using all of the digital formats that are available, social media, blogging, and of course all the elements that go into making your blogs kind of stand out. So in a nutshell, that's what I do. It's really about getting stories out about clients that resonate in various outlets, whether it be broadcasting outlets, whether it be newspapers and magazines, those kinds of outlets. And then of course now with this podcasting, which has become really huge and very important part of that. Those are all of the spaces that I kind of delve and interact with. So very easy way that we interact with clients based upon where you are. And we kind of look at that and just kind of get started based upon that. So really excited to be part of this discussion. I think I will be able to shed a little bit of light on some of the storytelling tactics that can be used to kind of get your story out, and some ways that you can do that. Maybe just some things you can even do yourself, as well as maybe working together if you were interested in working together at some point. So that's me in a nutshell.
All right. Thank you, Lori. And I'd also like to finally like to introduce Jarrell Wall. And Jarrell, I know some of you know, um, but Jarrell, I feel like, is going to be an important piece to this conversation too, because he has that perspective from like working in traditional media, but also has worked as a licensed as a MIP licensed Colorado base, and he's managed to build a successful cannabis brand over the past couple of years. So, Jarrell, could you talk a little bit about your background and skill set?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'll be
Yeah.
completely honest. I'm always appreciative when Ernest invites me to these things. I'm on a panel of some giants right now with Miss Ringelberg and Miss Shepard, so I'm going to learn a good bit myself. I'm Jarrell Wall, CEO and creative director of Gentleman Quinn's Blunt Company. We're a pre-roll manufacturer licensed in Denver. We've been around since 2015, so it's been a long journey. Outside of just the executive sides of things in terms of testing and marketing, or testing and the operations of the business, a good bit of my skill set when I used to work in television and things like that is I use that in my business for marketing, building the brand, outward facing opportunities and whatnot in terms of working with retailers and whatnot to sell our products and events and things like that. So from the ground up, we built our brand, me and my business partners, by ourselves. We didn't really have a lot of consultants and things like that, and a lot of it was trial by fire, shadow boxing in the dark and whatnot to see what works. And so far, we're still around, we're still making sales, and folks are by and large knowing more and more of our names. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to shed some of the difficulties and some of the opportunities that I've been able to use for Gentleman Quinn's, as we're a really unique type of product, and to still be around with a good bit of the challenges we've had. I think I could definitely shed some light on things that have worked for me. So definitely appreciate you guys inviting me. And like I said, I'm gonna be learning a whole lot here from these amazing ladies I'm on the panel with.
Okay. Well, hey, thank you all for also sharing some of your time and expertise with us today. Just want to go over a couple of just like housekeeping, things. I think most everyone here has attended like one of the webinars before, or participated in like the workshop that we had in person last week. If you have questions that come up throughout, the next like 40 minutes or so, there is like a chat function at the bottom of your screen. Just go ahead and type those questions in, and I'll look out for them and make sure that we can get them answered. Just to give you an idea of like how this is going to go today, we'll ask a few questions and really just try to make it conversational. I think there's a lot to learn here. We're not going to be able to capture it all, but the important part is everyone here is they're connected to the BIPOCann network, either as like members or, we're doing some collaborative work. I know even Lori is like helping one of the participants as a mentor. So even after this, like we will still be able to continue to get you in touch with the folks here, so they can be resources for you. All right. So sort of gave that intro and talked about knowing that the focus of this conversation is on brand building and storytelling. So just wanted to quickly talk about the difference between those two things. So if you can think of, brand building or brand development as the voice, the image, that you create for your company. If you think of brand storytelling as these tools that you use to create emotional or value-driven connection between your brand, your customers, your partners, it's a bit of art and science, right? And I think that where a lot of folks are on this call is we talked about some of the goals. A lot of folks are looking for capital. Some people are looking for partners. Some people are looking for ways to increase their customer base, or even influence legislators so that we can have policy that is going to ensure that your business can operate and be sustainable. So if you think about it, like when you have interactions, it's going to be very important for you to clearly be able to communicate your business, the problems that you're trying to solve, how you differentiate. Um, and a lot of that is through telling a story that is going to resonate with the person that you are, in front of. And that's going to change, right? But what we want to do, like I said, is like work with you over the next few weeks to help you apply some of these tools so that you can be more effective in achieving some of your goals. Um, Now, I guess like with that in mind, one of the things that I sort of wanted to ask, the group here is, could you tell us a little bit about, share your insights on brand building and storytelling? What does it mean to build your brand voice? And talked about like sort of why that's important, but what are some things that some like a new business owner might consider when it comes to telling their story? Um, Maybe Lori, would you be interested in sort of talking about that to get it started? And then everyone feel free to sort of chime in as needed.
Yeah. Thanks, Ernest. One of the first things that comes to mind when you just pose that question around brand is consistency. Having a consistent image, a consistent voice, a consistent kind of messaging, because ultimately the public customers, public facing individuals, whether it be the media, bud tenders, people that are in the industry, you want them to have a general, consistent understanding about what your brand is. And consistency, for some reason, is just something that just stands out in my mind as being something that you want to make sure that when you're new in getting into your business, getting your business up and running, that you're pretty consistent. Well, first of all, you want to know and define what your brand is. And then once that's defined and clear, be consistent in how you talk about it. Storytelling, on the other end, in my mind, is really about taking that brand and incorporating it in some kind of way so that again, who is your target audience? Your target audience has a real clear understanding about what your brand is. So that it's very clear if it's brand A and brand B and brand X, it's very clear what brand A and B and X stand for, what their target markets are. And so there's ways that you can demonstrate that through storytelling, whether the storytelling be through in some sort of media, through some sort of social media like Instagram, through Reels, and through videos, whether the storytelling is told through the media, through stories that you've been able to get engaged writers and editors and reporters to engage them about you, to write about. Cannabis Business Times is a great example, or any of the other magazines or outlets, or whether the storytelling is happening through podcasts. You're a guest on someone's podcast and you're able to incorporate your messages through there. So those are just a few ideas that come to mind when you ask that question, Ernest.
Okay. Thank you, Lori.
Mhm.
Michelle, like, do you have any thoughts on like what are some things that like a new business owner should consider when they're trying to um, build that brand? And one of the things I often think about is like, um, why should someone care, about what it is that you're offering, the product that you're selling, the problem that you're solving? What are some ideas that you have that could help? Um, I think companies like differentiate, or maybe just some other considerations for when you are trying to build and communicate your message.
Yeah, I think that like Lori was saying, with the consistency, that's like really important. But I also think there's a lot of speakers out there that talk about what is your why? Like why are you doing this business? Because you want to relate to others. So when they come to your website, they want to know, well, what is it about this company that makes them interesting? And by you being passionate about something and being able to tell that story, I think that is like what is really important and helpful, because you've been to a lot of different websites and you go there and you're like, I still don't know what they do. Like, I don't know why they're here, and you really need to make sure that you can tell that like immediately, like when you get to a website, say, hey, we do this. And here's why we do this, because we're passionate about this, or because cannabis impacted me, because my child, had this disease or whatever. And so now I have decided to start this company and help other people that are having that same type of issue. And when you are able to tell that story with your brand, it's so much more impactful than just, oh, they're just another dispensary, or they're just another this, like they're just selling widgets. Well, there's a reason behind it. And so the more that you can incorporate that into your brand, the more successful that you'll be, and the more transparent you can be, because people like to hear people having struggled, like, okay, I started this company, it failed initially because I did this, and this, but I learned from that, and now I, ended up changing the direction, and now this is the company that I have because of it. And then it makes people think, wow, they're real. They're like, I can relate to them because I totally like messed up and did that same thing, And so I think that like the combination of the two, like having that brand and then also like telling the story of why you as a business owner decided to do this company, I think that's what really makes the perfect like balance and the most successful.
Love that. Thank you. Jarrell, do you have any thoughts to share on um, on that same type of question about considerations for brand building? What's going to be important for somebody that, I mean, you've been there. So, uh, what do you think is going to be important for, people who are within like their first 1 to 3 years of business in Colorado trying to create a brand?
I could definitely echo what everybody said here in terms of consistency. It's really important to have consistent messaging, consistent imagery. Uh, what I notice a lot of the times with folks pre-business or pre-revenue, getting into business and things like that, and obviously with podcasting, just putting themselves out there, a lot of the times they put themselves in front of the brand. So I get on different accounts and whatnot, I hear about someone, hear about a new product, and I look for the product, but I usually see more of the story than the brand itself. So there really is a balance in between, what is exactly are you selling, what exactly is the purpose of that, and then when it comes to different mediums like social media, the different types of social medias, how do you tell the story as to what the product is used for, why are you doing it? And a lot of the times those are two different things in terms of uh, how the product is to be used, the experience you're trying to have somebody in when they actually buy the product, and exactly what your specific story is as to why you're in the industry and why are you, struggling in the industry as everybody else is. So I think it's really important to one, when you're first getting into it and you actually have a strong view of what your products and things are, you're not going to get it all figured out all at once. It took us a long time to actually figure it out, the theming, the branding, the consistency. We Since we're not a dispensary, and we weren't the biggest brand, had the biggest finance and things like that, we had to do everything on our own. A lot of folks didn't really quite notice it when we were kind of coming out because we are so low. So we have the opportunity now that people think we have it all dialed in on day one, but it really took a long time to find those balances and things like that. And having the opportunity to talk to folks in marketing and my own circle and things like that really helped me build it all out. But in terms of branding, storytelling, those are kind of separate things. But in terms of, you know, building the brand, having folks have an identifiable, logo, identifiable products, know exactly specifically what you're doing differently, and then the storytelling as to how to use the product, where those settings need to be, and why you're, specifically in the industry and things like that. It's really a decent balance, but I wouldn't expect to have it all done at once. But it's really important to get it to actually have energy onto it. Because I definitely know a few folks that, it's the business is important, actually selling, actually paying folks back is important, but it's also important to, build that brand specifically so you can have longevity.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's great. So so everyone said, consistency. And I like that piece that you shared about um, that balancing act, where it's uh, telling the story, showing the product and the brand. One of the things that, when you were speaking, like I was thinking about how oftentimes like uh, brands that people recognize or that they support, they might do that because it has solved a problem for them, or they have like an emotional connection to it. Um, there might be a reason why, think about like Starbucks, right? Like some people are like, all right, that's where I go for my coffee. Um, they have some type of connection to that. That's just an example. Um, so I guess the next question is, we talked about the importance of building a brand, being consistent, telling stories, but and we know that the participants, we know that a lot of the folks in the program just did some exercises to try to identify some of their strengths, some of their unique value propositions or their selling points. So what do you all think is important to help folks communicate value? Like, what do you think? What are some things that we should think about? Like, now that we know who we are, what we're trying to do, how would you go about communicating the value to your target audience? Um, Michelle, do you have any? Maybe I'll pick on you this time. Do you
Yeah.
have any? This? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I was just thinking about, making sure that you're telling like how it solves that problem for them, because that's going to like add the value, because a lot of people will compare and sometimes it's just price, but is that really like solving the problem? And I think we have to be thinking more about what does our audience want, and how are we communicating that this is the thing that will solve their problem, by showcasing testimonials or proven data, or whatever that may be. But I think that's really important when we're thinking about how is this going to add value. One is like, if you have like case studies and different things like that, but it's just remembering that they're coming to you because they have a problem and they're looking for a solution. And how can we do that? How can we solve that for you?
Yeah, thank you for that. Lori or Jarrell, do you have any thoughts on that too?
Jump in. Um, you know, thing that Michelle said is so resonates, and I also can think of one of the things I like to do a lot is, and one of the things I used to do a lot that worked really well when I was in this corporate environment was to have individuals, people, actual human beings that are talking about what their experience is as a result of your product or your service or whatever it is that you're doing, because people can relate to another person. The example of the child that may be battling some kind of disease is a perfect kind of example of that. And I know we're talking about, we're in the cannabis space, but you'd be surprised how you can find a story that might be specific to your business, that's very relatable to somebody else. I think about when I was in this corporate environment and we were dealing with these big mainframe computers that most people didn't, layperson didn't really know what they were or what they did. And so we were trying to figure out how could we make that relatable. Well, we took that idea of these mainframe computers, and what that mainframe computer at the end of the day, at the end of, when you distilled it down to everyday experiences. Well, a mainframe computer in one particular case was actually was was responsible for the gas and electric systems of a city. And so we started telling stories and using these case studies from that perspective. The fact that the lights are on, the fact that the gas is easily accessible, that means you can operate a restaurant. It means that a family in a home can operate. There's dinner on the table, there's lights on in the ceiling. Those kinds of things, if you think about it, that's just an example. I think Nike, for lack of a better example, but I think Nike I love their advertising. They'll take a whole story about the Williams sisters, whether you know anything about tennis or not, most people know who they are, and kind of tell their story. They're not talking about shoes. They're not talking about equipment, but we know that these are things that they use, but they're telling this very engaging story about how they came to be. So the long and short of it is, I think that for new business owners and recent business new into the cannabis industry, think about some of the ways that your either a dispensary might be touching maybe veterans that are dealing with PTSD, maybe talking about if you're in cultivation, what that process is. I'm working with a cultivator right now in Washington State. And, we're just getting started on some storytelling around their family, and also look at some of the topical things that are going on. In their particular case, this is a Black-owned cultivation group, and what we got coming up next month. Well, we have Juneteenth coming up next month. It was really important we can find a way to tell interesting stories about current day Black farmers, and then kind of somehow relating that to the history of our history in this country and Juneteenth. So that's kind of a long-winded way of answering your question, but I hope that gives it kind of some ideas about how you could approach it.
It's great information. I think a good bit of what I got from that is storytelling. Yet again, consistency in storytelling, and getting the idea of what the brand and the products are. Just based on use and folks within the business. I think for me, I tend to find what we did successful was packaging, or was how the product was kind of presented to people. We didn't change based on whatever the new tide of the day was, when they came out with the different packs and things like that with cartoon characters and pre-built brands that they just slapped their own names on and things like that. We did something completely different that was a little bit out of the ordinary in the industry that seemed a bit unpractical, but it kind of lended itself to tell its own story in that way. So I think, it just the attention to detail when it comes to what the products are and things like that, and how consistent you are with standing on it as opposed to switching whenever the new tides come up, that builds this perceived value as well. And a lot of it is perceived value, in terms of, as speaking about Nike and things like that, why is a Nike better than a Puma or a Payless shoe? It's perceived value in the storytelling they've done and throughout the marketing that, gives you the idea that this is a better product, regardless of how it feels to you and things like that, just based on how everyone around you is feeling about those products and things like that. So perceived value is really important. Educating the customer on the basic points of why you're doing things. I'm a product manufacturer. I'm not a dispensary, so I'm more than sure that when it comes to dispensaries, it's a little bit different for a retail shop to bring folks in to sell products as opposed to a brand that specifically is doing one specific thing. There's reasons why we're doing the specific thing. If it's the procurement of the product, if it's the process of how you're making the product, if it's the lack of the product's type in the market itself that brings this value. Specifically for us, when we came in, there weren't any branded pre-rolls. There weren't, by and large, any blunt type products in the industry. So we saw that as just an initial problem in itself, because cannabis and blunts, or cannabis and joints and whatnot, are more synonymous than anything compared to cannabis and gummies. Now, obviously, today, those are a kind of a completely different thing because it's so ubiquitous now. But we saw that as a void in the market. So the perceived value and having that on shelves and whatnot lended itself to what we were trying to do. So I definitely think the attention to detail, long and short of it is Lori said here, is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, thank you. Go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, when you were telling about the packaging, I think that's so important because, like, as a consumer, when you're sitting at the pharmacy and you're trying to decide between cold medicine, you're like, well, I don't know, like, that one just looks nice and it looks like it's going to be more effective versus the black and white generic unbranded, and it's just like, well, I know it's like $3 more, but it just looks like it might do it better because it looks cool, or it looks nice versus this, black and white. I know have just been going through this because I have allergies, and so I'm like, I don't know, that one looks unbranded and maybe it doesn't work as good. So I'm gonna buy this one that like looks more colorful. It may not be more effective, but I don't know. It just makes you feel like, I mean, that's just really important. The branding of the packaging and how are you presenting yourself or your product is important.
And I just
Yeah,
want to jump in because Gerald said, oh, I'm sorry. He said perceived value, right? That perception. It's like, oh gosh, it's more expensive. And I think that means it's going to be better, So it's more expensive versus, like you said, the more generic one. But yeah, those are such excellent points. Excellent. Yeah, I totally can relate
appreciate
to
you
that.
guys.
No,
Well, we've done just being in this for so long. We've seen auxiliary companies that help pay for that provide packaging and things like that. That's common to us on shelves and things like that already. And we understand that there's a cost analysis between what you're going to be, putting your things in, how you're going to get your stickers and things like that. And for us, we were like, at a certain point, you gotta spend money on something. And for us, we want to spend money on packaging because again, shelf differentiation, especially when shelf space is so hard to come by. How do you get some folks to just immediately see your products? And obviously, what's in the product, what's in the packaging is most important. But just getting, just cutting the tape to have folks, look at yours and want to at least give you a try is pretty important as well. So I definitely know that it's a cost analysis to the side of that, but you definitely got to pay for things at certain points in your business. And for us, packaging was a big.
no, thank you. So these are all great insights, and actually, Jarrell, I think that your example is a really good one, because if you think about, and everyone that's like listening, you think about that exercise that we went through, and we were trying to say, okay, what are our strengths? Jarrell, you entered the industry, but you had this background that you knew that you could immediately put to use. And okay, so what's an opportunity? All right, well, I'm noticing that there aren't any like handcrafted, products on shelves. Okay, how can I make mine look different? I'm gonna My differentiator is the presentation and making sure that like what we put out there is gonna have this story or this high quality and appeal. And look at this, I have a copy, not a copy. I have an example of your
Me
package,
too.
right? And it's like it's cool. You can it has a tagline there. You can open it up. It has this cool presentation on the inside, and you pull it out, and it has a card, and it tells a story about the product right there. So even before you have a chance to like open this up and take the product out, like you can touch, taste, read, smell, like it's creating some type of experience, you know and that's going to be different than what you might get from other uh, competing options, like when you go to stores. And part of the way that you continue to tell that story is through that through like all of that detail that you've done. But once it's there, then this ends up being like a tool that can also help with marketing and to continue to tell stories for. I'll
It's
show
the
up.
idea.
What's that?
So that was the idea, 100%.
um, I'll share some other examples, right? I have some frisbees, right, with my let me take the blur off, but I have some frisbees with my logos on them, right? And I'm gonna take the blur off here for a second. Okay. And there's a story there. I've played frisbee, for 20 years, and this is something that's important to me. But if you look at like BIPOCANN, like that means something. We were trying to find ways to connect the BIPOC communities to the cannabis industry, and even this, which sort of looks like a figure eight, it's sort of talking about how you have this we have this potential to have a better, stronger, more impactful industry if we can integrate those underrepresented communities. And it even has like a gap that talks about like the barriers that these folks are currently facing. And I can look at that, and people may not see that, but that's something. It's a story that I can tell whenever I talk about the brand. And then one of the things that we did was make sure that we had our mission pillars: visibility, representation, and equity. So anytime someone sees this on a badge, uh, it's talking about what we do. And our supporters of this are supporting these pillars. So you can create a lot of different like subtle things, sort of like how Nike has that swoosh and the just do it, and there's a story behind that too. But um, part of that brand building is like, okay, what can you do that's going to differentiate your products, sort of integrate your personality, like the things that you do differently or better than others, or solving a problem, right? We knew that there was some of those gaps in the industries, and we were sort of setting out to solve those problems. So I just wanted to share that. Oh, I think we have a couple questions. Someone asked, as a farmer who sells bulk quantities to dispose, how can my product stand out to the consumer through packaging? Um, any thoughts there?
I'm not sure if anybody wants to take this, but if I'm being honest, I could speak to my type of product. I've been so delved into the pre-roll space for so long. I'm really myopic on that when it comes to not even our specific products, but packs and things like that. So I have a lot of thoughts on my sector. Uh, but I do know Rayshawn. I do know your brand and things like that. Your great flower, and I do know your logo. And I think I couldn't quite say much about packaging because I'm not quite on that side of things. But just in terms of your brand, the giant dinosaurs is Growzilla 5280 and things like that. It's definitely a lot of opportunities to, brand that specifically, go to dispensaries and whatnot and show the dinosaur in some different ways and things like that, and differentiate yourself based on, your farm and stuff like that. So, just a quick things that come to mind, but, specifically on packaging, as you're doing it at scale, uh, I'd say definitely look at what's already on the shelf. What's because again, Colorado's based on the vertical integration, so you're already competing with different products before you can even compete to the marketplace. So it's really important to kind of see, and that was a big thing that we did. We went to all the dispensaries that were near us, kind of see what is on shelves and whatnot, kind of seeing what marketing and what talking points were out there to kind of differentiate ourselves based on that. So you obviously have the opportunity to do that as you're on shelves and you're actually in stores. Just doing that market research to see what actually does sell and how does it differentiate with the brands that are actually being sold by the dispensary from the dispensary. It's my best advice off the top of my head.
Mhm.
Awesome. Yeah.
I could just add one thing also is, what is it that's unique about your cultivation? Is it organic farming? Do you meet certain kinds of standards that maybe others don't, and even if they do, somehow highlighting those aspects of your cultivation. When you look at the packaging of things that we think about it just as consumers, how you feel sometimes if you look at something that says made in the US, or something that kind of highlights, so that particularly for people that are very sensitive to wanting to support a family farm, wanting to support something that's not a non-corporate, somehow maybe highlight that on that packaging, I think would be another idea that you might want to consider.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't really have a lot more to add. I think those are both like really great points. So I think market research is really important. See what other people are doing, and then how can we be a little different and more unique than that to stand out.
Um, we have a little bit of time left. I wanted to ask like another question for each of you, but maybe could you share a little bit about how brand building has helped your business, or even sort of share like some of the thought process that went into your branding? Like, Jarrell, you've already answered that question to a degree, but like 25 seconds PR, boom, what does that mean? Or know,
Well,
just
yeah. Well, the funny thing about it, it's a sign that I guess it's a sign that I've been around a long time, because back in the day, when you used to call up a reporter and you had this pitch, you have really about 25 seconds to get your pitch. Yeah, and you have to be perfect. You got to get it across so that they like, oh yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. Yeah, I think I'll follow up on that. Well, things have changed. First of all, very rarely do I actually even call reporters anymore. Once in a blue moon, it's really rare. And even if I did, it wouldn't be 25 seconds. It would probably be like 10 seconds. You have to get your point across. But I think the main thing I wanted to convey is that there's a swiftness to what we're doing. There's a swiftness to getting your story out there. There's a swiftness and a fast quality to the process. The process is a fast process. And usually when I'm working with clients, we're going to jump right in. I'm going to usually, let's do this tomorrow. Let's do this, by the end of the week. Let's do this next week, so that there's a feeling that we're getting to a end result without having to wait for a long time. Sometimes sometimes there could be a misconception about marketing, sometimes a misconception about PR. And so the main thing I wanted to do with 25 seconds was just kind of simplify. This is a swift process. This is a fast process. So that's what the thinking that was involved in that.
Yeah, I could
Okay.
I guess it's two questions here in terms of how has branding helped the business, and then how did you kind of come to that conclusion? Branding's definitely helped our business by being able to differentiate. When there was a void, there was no other products kind of like ours, and now there's a ton of products like ours, and there's a ton of products not necessarily packaged or look the same way or marketed like ours, but just the essence of a product. There's a lot of them now. So when we kind of came in, we were kind of first to market with a few things, and we were dissuaded a lot of different ways from a lot of different people saying that this wouldn't work. And that basically just kind of showed us that, it's the same principles with any type of business, any type of industry. When there is nothing, it freaks people out, or folks just kind of go with what they know. So you kind of have to build in darkness, and then once folks kind of get it, you get the pat on the back, like of course it was going to work. But we were dissuaded a lot of different ways. But obviously for us, brand building, it definitely helped us get shelf visibility. It definitely helped us when it comes to other brands in cannabis. Well, I say it like this in terms of how we got this methodology started. I'm from the television world. I'm a creative. I was a professional creative in corporate, and by and large, that career path is kind of the same thing when it comes to marketing. Folks don't really think that it's necessary. They think things sell by itself. They think, oh, you could just do one or two things, chat GPT, we could just get it done really easily. So I've always had in my career having to build my own value and explain to folks why it's important to have marketing, why it's important to have graphic design, audio production, and things like that. So when I got into the industry, dispensary asked me, we need help with magazine ads. We need help with, product labels and things like that. So I had the ground floor during the medical days of basically just kind of seeing what was being done, looking at magazines, and by and large, a lot of the ads were just photos of plants, green crosses. All the names were all the same, so it was pretty easy to look at the landscape and say, there's a lot that could be changed here. And then one thing that we definitely noticed was once we go out of town, folks come to visit Colorado, they visit California, they keep all their jars that they bought weed out of from the dispensaries. So we were like, well, this is a completely incredible marketing space because folks are just going to keep it around. So we wanted to, as you're saying, Ernest, when you show the boxes, this is exactly what we wanted to do. Have folks keep it, make it such a ubiquitous part of their homes that it'd be like a nice little thing they could use outside of the product itself. So we wanted to basically just have something that wasn't being done in the industry. It was a lot of landscape, and we're not even 15 years in the industry right now. There's still so much to be built out. There's so many things that I don't know about the industry and marketing and learning in this conversation that can be implemented in the future. So that was kind of a bit of the methodologies, kind of seeing what was marketing, what was already being done, what landscapes were available to us, and just going full fledged. And by and large, what we notice is a lot of it's based on what value can these things bring, and a lot of it's nebulous. A lot of marketing is like you're not going to see the data today and tomorrow. It's going to be a consistent thing, and if you're able to keep it up, you see that value over time. And for us, since we're independent, we've been able to put our own money in. We've been able to see the value in over the course of years with the consistency we've been doing it. But brand building has been very important to differentiate our products on shelf.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like for us, when I started Thrive Pop in 2017, and when I started it, I started thinking back, what is it that I really liked doing? And it really was helping companies grow and thrive. And obviously, with great design and visuals, your ads will pop and be the one that are going to stand out. So that's where we came up with the name Thrive Pop. And whenever like we're out at trade shows or something, people always will come up to us and say, I knew you had to be a marketing agency with the fun name that you have. And people just really love the name because it is fun, and fun's one of our core values as well. And a lot of people in marketing, you're not going to go to like a marketing agency and say hot pink and purples, and I mean, that's not like a typical, I don't think. But when you go to our website, like it's a fun, like interesting, like website that ties with the fun name. And so it's just all encompassing. But really, it was more about what is it that I like to do, and what is it I want my team to do, which is help companies grow. I want people to have fun when they're working. I'm pretty transparent, so I want to make sure like anybody on my team is transparent. I'm very transparent with our clients, and hard work and just having helping clients is really what it's about. And so that's kind of how the evolution of our brand came to be.
Great. And actually, I hadn't heard about Thrive Pop until I was walking the floor of BIPOCann last year. And for anybody that's been there, it's a huge space with like thousands of over 1,000 exhibitors. And I'd probably walk down maybe like 7 or 8 aisles, and I could see your booth out of the corner of my eye, and it caught my attention. And I'm like, I got to check that out. And I walked meet members, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. They need to be connected to what you just said about like, okay, how can we be different? How can we like make sure that our brand pops and it stands out? And it caught my attention. So all right, so we've talked about like some ideas today that can, just some considerations, like um, how can we create value? What are some things you can do different? We talked about some very specific things like showing you examples of like packaging and products that speak to your brand and the uniqueness of it. And those are the things that I believe are going to be really important for the mentorship cohort to work on over the next couple of weeks. The last question I just asked a few minutes ago, when we asked people to basically say, okay, how has brand building helped you? Everybody basically went in and told their story. Like, this is a problem that I saw. This is how I wanted to approach it. This is an insight that I saw, and I knew that there was a gap that I could solve for. We've identified a problem, wanted to come up with a unique way to solve it, and then we put a business around that. That's exactly like what we're going to be working on over the next few weeks. So thank you all because literally as we were talking about that and you were sharing that background, you were telling your brand story, and it gave us like some insights into what makes your businesses unique. I'm going to try to share my screen real quick. Can you all see my screen or no?
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
Does it is it showing like the storytelling framework?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So for all of the for everyone that's participating in the mentorship program, you have your program workbook, and one of the things that we're going to work on over the next couple of weeks is to try to build like our storytelling framework. And um, these are just a couple of examples that are going to try to help take some of those insights that we talked about, uh, at the workshop and the webinar, but really think about, okay, well, like Jarrell said, and like Michelle and Lori said when they were talking about, oh, I noticed that this was a problem in my specific industry or within the marketplace. So once upon a time, there was boom, this problem, and every day or over time, I noticed this. Then one day we did this, and because of that, this happened until finally we are here. So we just had like this little, please reference that. We'll do some communications in the networking app, so we can answer questions and things like that. But we'll be working with you all over the next couple of weeks to sort of use this as like a framework. There's another framework too, which is really about the features and benefits, and I like this one too because this is about like the what are some of the things that you're trying to solve for? Um, so some of the businesses that are operational right now are delivery, right? So maybe you might say, okay, well, the feature of my business is that I deliver cannabis to people. Okay, if that's the feature, then we ask, okay, so what? What's the benefit? So maybe the benefit is I'm saving people a lot of time and convenience because I'm bringing their cannabis products to them directly. And then we try to take this formula and we flip it on its head, right? So it has some examples here, but I think that is going to be a way for you to start to apply, some of um, um, to really try to think about like some of the problems that you're trying to solve for your customers, and then to try to like use this exercise to map out the beginning of some stories around that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, a couple of things. Actually, one example that I often think about is one of the cohort members is Michael Diaz Rivera, and he runs Better Days Delivery. And I swear, like every time I see Michael, either in an email or posting something on social media, he has a tagline that says, "Better days are on the way." And I think that that's like a great example of being able to try to um, be a differentiator, or to let somebody know about uh, the product or the service that he's offering. And I might even challenge Michael to think, even deeper about what that means. So better days are on the way. Maybe that is, um, resonating with folks who have been, formerly incarcerated, that have, that are going through the process of applying for a social equity business. Better days might be this opportunity to participate in a new market, or it could even be for the customer. It used to be that I had to get my weed from, somebody, and it wasn't very reliable, but I would try to call up for, delivery, and maybe they show up on time, but hey, better days are on the way. Now I can call and these people can bring it to me right away. So just sharing some ideas there.
Mhm.
Um, all right, so I think we're sort of approaching the end of the call. I just wanted to see if any of the presenters have any last words to share about considerations for brand building before we say goodbye.
I got, a couple little different things, but I definitely say just practically, from what I've been seeing and, what I've had to do in the industry, I think it's really important to, engagement's really important. Engagement with your audience online digitally, because a lot of the times, if you're not a dispensary, you're having to sell to dispensaries. So you have to think of this in two different ways. You have to think B2B and B2C. Uh, because a lot of the times dispensaries by and large, being that they sell their own products, uh, they don't necessarily see the inherent importance of branding to customers because you have to come to us to buy your products. We'll tell
Mhm.
you everything once you're inside. For
Mhm.
us, we don't necessarily get that as a product manufacturer. We don't necessarily get that opportunity. So we have to, one, bring the value proposition to the dispensary, why you're going to make money with our products, and at the same time we have to sell our products to the consumer. So
Mhm.
one way of doing that is obviously in-store activations, pop-ups, and things like that. But that really does help us sell to the dispensaries and assist with selling to tenders. But on the other end, digitally, obviously we are the most constrained industry. We're not quite free market right now. So you have to do what you can with the tools in the toolbox. And even though you have, just a hammer to build a house, you got to do what you got to do. So I definitely say it's important to be on as many digital platforms as you can. Now, obviously, there is some digital fatigue, social media fatigue, and things like that. But I do find it a lot helpful for me, being that I'm a step back. It's not Jarrell out there. I'm not necessarily the face of the business. The products are the face of the business. So it definitely limits me from, going off rails when it comes to different things when it comes to cannabis. It makes it the brand itself are the brand itself is most important. So it's really important to be on as many platforms as you can that are allowing you to do things to be customer facing. And each of those platforms have different audiences. So you definitely have to understand how to market towards those different audiences, as opposed to just putting the same images and messaging and things like that on each messaging board. You have a manufacturer for each one, engage in different ways on each one. You're not going to engage with people on Twitter the same way you engage with them on Instagram, or the same way you engage with them on a professional platform like LinkedIn. But they all demand, brands to, compete on each of those platforms differently. And I just encourage everybody to, at least get handles on each one of those platforms emerging
Mhm.
that folks, aren't necessarily on right now. Just get a handle, get familiar with it, get familiar with TikTok and things like that for your brand, because it's really necessary.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing people always ask me, well, what's the one marketing tactic that I should do? There isn't one. There's like multiple. So, but when you're starting out, I would say I agree. Like, you need to be on social. Try to be where your client is hanging out. That's where you need to be. Like, is it B2B? Okay, then LinkedIn. Is it B2C? Instagram. So whatever those are, be where that audience is at, so that you can start developing this relationship and talking with them. And do a lot of those when you don't have like a big marketing budget. Do those things that are inexpensive, like social, email, any of those things, networking, events. Just the more you can get involved in different associations and become like the expert in your industry, that's gonna really help like elevate you and elevate your brand.
And then I'll just chime in. As the last head here, talking head, I would recommend get out there, believe it or not, and see if you can make some contact with one of these reporters, one of these writers. So if you, whatever outlets that you read, they're talking about the industry, they're talking about this dispensary, they're talking about this cultivation. It's usually not very difficult to go, and sometimes these outlets will have a page where they list the writer and the name of that writer and the email address for that writer, or there you can usually track that person down through their Instagram and just reach out. You'd be surprised and say, hey, my name is Lori. I just started this cultivation company, or I'm based here in the city. We've got a new dispensary. Would love to just talk to you about our journey and tell you the story that we have to tell, which is we think is compelling enough that would engage your readers. Or if it's a podcast, hey, we'd love to be a guest on your show. We have a lot of things we can talk about. You'd be surprised at the kind of response you get. Sometimes there may be no response, but it doesn't mean that they're not interested. It's only usually means that they are just inundated. And sometimes the thing about the squeaky wheel, the person that's raising awareness, the person that's saying, hey, take a look at me, sometimes we'll get that attention. So that's a recommendation. It's something you can think about doing.
All right. Hey, thank you all for sharing with us today. If you could do me a favor and just type in your contact information in the QA, just so everybody has access to that. We'll also, make sure that we can, follow up so that the program participants know how to get in touch with you as well. But okay, so I'm going to go ahead and, yep, I see Jarrell, you got yours in there. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, everybody, thank you all for attending this this session today. I hope you found it to be insightful, and for the program participants, like I said, we'll be in touch. Before the end of the week. We always send out those emails at the beginning of the week too. But we have some activities that are coming up. In about a month, we have that media day. So there is some work that we want to do before we get there just to help with the storytelling. And we want to make sure that you can get connected to the folks here on the call and take advantage of some of the other resources that we have in the network so that we can help you get your stories told and communicated out there. So thanks again, and we will be in touch soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Talk soon.